Hello, everyone. I'm doing something a little different today. I am going to be ranking every single movie that I saw for the first time in 2023. I wasn't originally planning on doing this, and then I saw some other channels doing it, and I thought, you know what? I've been wanting to talk about movies on this channel. I know I talk predominantly about music, but I have been wanting to ease my way into the film space as well because I really do love film. I've been, especially in the last year, watching a lot more movies than I have previously. This year I watched 122 films for the first time, not counting TV shows and limited series. And I also did a ton of rewatches of movies as well. And I thought, you know what? Because I now have the Letterboxd app, which I highly recommend, and I've really enjoyed using throughout 2023. This is the first year that I've actually logged the entire year for. I think it's just a wonderful way to rate and catalog all the movies that you've seen and keep track of it, like a sort of cinematic diary. And I will link my Letterboxd account in the description. But I figured I could come up with a list of every movie because I have that app. I could look back and see what I'd watched in 2023 based on my memory as well. And I put together a list, and it's a lot of movies. So I'm going to try and move through a lot of them quickly because I don't want this video to be obscenely long, but I will give my thoughts on most of them or almost all of them as best I can, as briefly as I can. Because this is a way for me to talk about a ton of movies that I would love to talk about on this channel. I just haven't had the wherewithal to film an actual video for. And I'd love to keep doing this kind of in the future. Maybe I'd do one for 2024 next year as well for all the movies. I've already logged several for this year, so I have that tabbed in the app. So I'm going to be using TierMaker, and I'm going to pull it up here. Now, I did decide I'm going to have 7 categories, but instead of giving each category a fun kind of witty name, I ultimately decided to go a little boring, but it gets the job done. And I'm just going to go with 5 stars, 4.5 stars, 4 stars, 3.5 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and 1 star. So I feel like within all those categories, I can get a good, kind of idea of where I'm placing things. Because I don't like when there's too few categories. It sort of defeats the point of a ranking, right? And as you can see, we got a lot of movies. Now, I will admit, and this site is kind of crashing on me frequently, so things are taking a while to load. But I will admit that TierMaker is always an app that can be a little buggy, and I had inputted all of these films in alphabetical order. So the order that these got put in is just all over the place. Like, it's not chronological order either of when I watched the movie. It's just the order that my computer decided to dump these photos into TierMaker in. So it's going to be all over the place. So that'll make things interesting. And it looks like at the very beginning, we have How to Train Your Dragon 3. So that's showing how random this is because I watched all 3 How to Train Your Dragon movies this year for the first time. But I did watch them in order, I promise. But The Hidden World was one of the good ones. I mean, they're all phenomenal. These are the DreamWorks animated movies. I know, it's crazy I hadn't seen them before. And so I'm going to kick things off by putting this movie up in the, I'm going to do 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. I think as far as modern DreamWorks movies go, these are the most well-rounded films Pixar's given us. The music is so good, that John Powell score. Oh. We have Carl's Date, which was a short before the movie Elemental. Pixar's likes to put these little shorts in front of their movies. And it was cute. I'm going to give it 3 stars because it's, nothing special. It's like 12 minutes. But loved Up, so it was a nice little nod to that. Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time. Again, this list is going to be all over the place. I'd never seen this sequel to the Disney Cinderella, and I've heard it's really good compared to the second one. We don't talk about the second one. Apparently, it's not very good. But the third one is really entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to put it up in 4 stars, which is kind of high. But I mean, as far as Disney sequels go, this has been lauded by a lot of people as one of the best. So I'd recommend it. It's really funny. It's got a great story, twists and turns. We have The Lorax from 2012. I had never seen this movie. I'm going to put it in 3.5. I wasn't that impressed with it, but at the same time, I was expecting worse. Taylor Swift does voice acting in this one. I had no idea. Yeah, no, just kind of a little forgettable. Kind of forgot I watched it this year, to be honest. We have some Doctor Who in here because I am a Doctor Who fan, and David Tennant returned as the Doctor for 3 episodes on Disney Plus. But because they were like full length movies, basically, they were like an hour long, and they were considered specials. They're not really episodes, so I'm including them in here. Maybe you could argue they shouldn't be, but I haven't watched the Christmas special yet. But The Giggle is the one with Neil Patrick Harris as the villain. And of course, we've got Donna Noble returning with Catherine Tate. She's a phenomenal, best companion the Doctor ever had. I also love Catherine Tate as a comedian and actress. And this one wasn't my favorite. I'm going to ultimately kind of go in the 3-star category for it. It just didn't quite deliver on the sort of epicness of a Doctor Who finale episode or a regeneration episode. It was really cool to see in Ncuti Gatwa the way he regenerated. I was not expecting that. The new Doctor that will start in the new season this year. Shrek Forever After is the 4th Shrek film, which I had somehow completely never seen. Completely went under my radar. And yeah, it was okay. It wasn't really anything that great. It was certainly better than the 3rd one. I think we can all agree, but nowhere near the 1st and 2nd. HBO did a Harry Potter special called Harry Potter the 20th Anniversary Special, and I didn't watch it until 2023, but it came out New Year's of 2022, and it was a really heartwarming look as a Harry Potter fan at the making of the movies and seeing Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Daniel Radcliffe waxing nostalgic about those early days filming those films. So for, every millennial, that's kind of their thing. It's kind of our thing as a Harry Potter fan growing up. So I figured I'd give it a check out. I mean, I really wish that there had been a couple other actors involved, but a lot of them did come back. I would have loved to have seen Maggie Smith there. I know she's quite old now. But J.K. Rowling wasn't there. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I wonder why. So I'm going to put it in 3.5. It was a pleasant, little documentary watch. We have the Star Beast, which was the first of the 3 Doctor Who specials. Again, my least favorite of the 3. I'm going to put it in 3 stars. By the way, I'm not going to order or arrange these at the beginning in any particular order within the categories. At the end, maybe I'll go through and do some rearranging to sort of go from left to right, getting worse, I suppose. I saw She's the Man for the first time this year with Amanda Bynes. I mean, it was a fun comedy. What can I say? It's such a tragic story for Amanda, though, isn't it? For Hollywood. Lion King 1.5 is another somewhat well-regarded Disney sequel. I had seen Simba's Pride before as a kid, and I had obviously loved the original, but I had never seen 1.5, so I was like, I guess I gotta watch this. And it was okay. Not anything too special. I'm gonna put it in 3 stars. Okay, so I need a little bit of explanation here, but you might have heard me on this channel say that I am not a superhero person. I really don't watch the genre, don't know anything about it. I've railed against it in the past, and I still am there. Don't get me wrong, not really a superhero person, but I must admit, this year was the year I caved and started watching some Marvel movies. I had seen a few before, like on airplanes, and like going to the theater with friends, but it wasn't really my choice. But this was the first year that I really voluntarily sat down and was like, I'm going to watch these on Disney Plus. And I started in 2014 and been working my way up because I had seen a couple like Thor 1 and the first Captain America, like when I was in college and high school. So I was like, I don't need to rewatch those. So I've started watching a bunch of these for the first time. And so Civil War was one of the first ones I watched. It was not the first. So again, this order is all over the place. This is the 2016 Captain America film. And it's not the best Captain America film I saw this year. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. It has some really comedic battle sequences, but I mean, it's really hard for me to take myself seriously even reviewing this kind of stuff. I never said I would review superhero schlock on this channel, but here I am. Oh well, you can't deny the production value and some of the special effects. and also Chris Evans' biceps and eyes. I mean, you can't deny Chris Evans. Okay, so talk about a really great film. This year I saw Missing, which was sort of not a sequel, but it was like the next interpretation of a film called Searching, which was released back in 2018, which I really loved. And it's filmed entirely using screen capture on, smartphones and laptops. So everything is like looking at screen recording to tell the story of a mother searching, or actually, no, in this case, a daughter searching for her mom when she goes to Central America, if I'm not mistaken. Can't quite remember. It was a little while ago. I watched this at the beginning of the year. But it was a phenomenal movie. It's going up in 5 stars for me. Well, I don't know, maybe 4.5 for now. I'm going to put it in 4.5 because it was pretty good. I think Searching was a little better because this one had some ridiculous plot details that just started to get a little less believable but than the first film. But it still was a phenomenal film I recommend. Really riveting. You just never knew what was going to happen. There's always classics that some people are really late to watching for the first time. And for this, one of the films I made a big priority for this year to watch for the first time was It's a Wonderful Life, the 1946 Christmas classic. And so I got to see it actually at this like downtown theater with like tons of actually it was a lot of young people. It wasn't just older people in the theater. I thought it would be with my family. And it was really wonderful to see. I've never seen it before, which is kind of sad to say. I will give it 4 stars. I think it's a tad overrated. I mean, that's an unpopular opinion I have about a lot of these cult classics. Well, I wouldn't even call it a cult classic. I'd call it just a bona fide classic. Everyone and their grandma loves this movie, and I love it, but, I don't know if I actually really need to see it again. The whole sequence where he was just running around refusing to understand that he was, in this sort of alternate reality where he never existed. It got really frustrating watching his brain just not compute that these people weren't going to know who he was. And I almost wanted to yell at him. I was like, stop acting so stupid here. Realize what's going on, okay? It's very heavy-handed. And these older films are, they're tacky like that. Oh, speaking of a heavy-handed, very dense film, Tar, Cate Blanchett's and Todd Field's magnum opus ode to this fictional psychotic composer. Oh boy, this was definitely a film. This was a film. I mean, a lot of people probably feel Cate Blanchett was robbed of Best Actress for this, and if we're going by like pure auteur thespian acting, maybe Cate Blanchett should have won the Oscar for this. But this movie was too high on its own supply for me. I was really into it for like the first hour. But then once the movie starts to devolve and Lydia Tarr starts to literally mentally unravel, the film lost me. It lost my mom. Art house cinematography, as much as I am an art student and I love avant-garde abstract art house cinematography is hit or miss. And this movie just got less and less enjoyable as it moved along. By the end, I was just like, this is a joke. I feel like I wasted my time. So I'm sorry, that's just how I felt about this movie. I know it's a little unpopular opinion, but another one that's controversial, was potentially going to be an awards pleaser, was Saltburn, which I did watch this year. I've got mixed feelings on this one. I actually don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is on Twitter. I think the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. Rosamund Pike and Carey Mulligan are the standouts. Barry Keogh does a good job too, and that end scene where he's dancing to Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor is gay heaven. So, I mean, I'm going to be real. I got to give it props for being like, I don't know, cinema in my view. I know some people wouldn't call it that, but I'm putting it in 4 stars because I see a lot of artistic merit to this. I don't necessarily I'm not going to spoil it, but I don't necessarily like the overall like plot twist and the overall sort of arc of the protagonist's story, I would have done things very differently. But I won't give away any spoilers in this video, so I won't go too much into that. I watched the live action remake of Lady and the Tramp. These live action remakes Disney keeps pumping out, and I just somehow missed this one. I gotta be honest with you, I almost feel like I shouldn't even include it on this list because I was barely keeping attention to the screen, barely paying attention. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I mean, it wasn't, is that a little harsh? Yeah, no, I have to because it wasn't keeping my attention. Wasn't keeping my attention, and it just wasn't. I mean, these live action remakes are not, for the most part, really feeling worth our time. And they just make you want to watch the original films. Miley Cyrus had a backyard sessions. So we got a little bit of music stuff in here. And I talked about it in my Endless Summer Vacation. Oh no, I never reviewed that album on my channel, did I? I never reviewed that album. Well, if I had reviewed it, I would have talked about how I loved Miley's Backyard Sessions performance. It's the only real thing she's done to promote the record, which I think is really sad. But I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Don't ask why I saw Medea Homecoming. I think I saw it on a date with someone. It was not my choice. You know what? I had a good time, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. I know Medea movies are extremely divisive. Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, I definitely enjoyed this one. I think this was the first Marvel movie I watched this year, so when I decided I was going to start, I started with Guardians of the Galaxy because I think Guardians of the Galaxy is a lot more my speed. I really like the sort of sci-fi, esoteric stuff that is in that element of the franchise, more than the street fighting kind of stuff. And so, although I'm not a huge Chris Pratt fan, I mean, I kind of warmed up to him from watching these films. The first Guardians is good. It's definitely going up in 4 stars. But then I also watched Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think this was the second Marvel movie I watched, and this year. And this is definitely better than Civil War, as a lot of people have critically said. So it's also going up in 4 stars. It started to get me kind of like invested in keeping watching these movies. By this point, I was like, I might continue to do this. At first, I was like, I might just watch one and dip because I don't know if this is for me. I watched Nope, Jordan Peele's film with Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya. Again, have mixed feelings. I'll have mixed feelings about a lot of these movies. I think it is a gorgeous movie. I think that the alien design, I was just like mesmerized. I was like looking up how they used all of these different sea creatures and all of this kind of, the art direction, props to the art director for the alien creature. But it ultimately disappointed me a little bit. So I'm going to give it 3.5. Left me wanting a little more. How to Train Your Dragon, the original. Ugh, such a classic. I'm going up with 4.5 stars for this one. This is just one of DreamWorks' most classic films. This one's from 2010. They're doing a remake of it next year, and I'm worried about that. But we'll see. Now, I watched some prestige films again this year, and one that won the Oscar in 1987 is The Last Emperor. This movie is about the literal last child emperor of China in the early 20th century, when he had the kingdom of China snatched out from under him by the revolution. He kind of just stayed living in the Forbidden Palace for like all of his teenagehood, while outside everyone kind of forgot about them. It was really interesting to see the transition of China in the early 20th century through the lens of this film and I forget the character's name, the literal last emperor of this long-lasting dynasty. China's never been the same. Certainly a fascinating story, 20th century Chinese history. I took a class on it in college. This is going up in 5 stars. I see why this won the Oscar. It is absolutely breathtaking. The cinematography, the music, the costuming, the acting it's just all phenomenal in my opinion. Okay. So just saying. And we have the last Doctor Who special. This was my favorite. This is Wild Blue Yonder. This one felt the most like a classic Russell T Davies Doctor Who special. And so I'm going to putting it up in 4 stars. I love when Donna and the Doctor are trapped on a spaceship in space with an overarching eerie mystery. That's my favorite kind of Doctor Who. Another biopic I watched this year was called Chevalier, and it was about a lesser-known French composer of Caribbean descent who was actually in the aristocracy of France in Marie Antoinette's era, and was sort of a little bit of a rival to Mozart. But until the 20th century, we didn't really know much about him, until recently, actually. And so his compositions have since been discovered, and he is now finally getting his dues as this phenomenal composer. So as far as biopics about that period of French history goes, this was a pretty well done film. I mean, it had some really compelling performances. Speaking of not so compelling performances, The Exorcist Believer, oh boy, yeah, this movie definitely, I'm glad I didn't see this in theaters. This was definitely a 2-star film. I'm putting it in 2 stars, then 1. I know a lot of people would put it in 1. I think this got nominated for several Razzies. Yeah, I can see why. I actually really liked the first, almost half of the film, where it was just about these missing children and what happened to them. But then it started to become very dime a dozen exorcism fare. I'm getting really tired of this exorcist stuff, honestly. I think it's getting really played out in Hollywood. I don't know why we're just making 1,000,001 exorcism movies. It's getting this Catholic religious horror thing is getting beaten to death. I love seeing horror films that are a completely different kind of spiritual pagan religious undertone. So, yeah, it also definitely had some undertones of anti-abortion, which, could be viewed as problematic in today's society. Insidious: The Red Door was also a pretty lackluster film. I'm afraid I'm going to have to also put it in 2 stars. I'm not a big fan of the Insidious franchise. The first one was the best. This one was trying to recapture the magic of the first, but it really just didn't feel like the story was hitting. Just really was hard to really believe any of it, and it just wasn't coming across as, it wasn't compelling. But speaking of a haunt, I wanted to watch around Halloween some different creepy movies I'd never seen before. So I came across on Amazon this movie from 1981 called Ghost Story, and it stars all of these big name actors from the mid 20th century, and they're in their golden years, and they're recounting stories about this woman who you learn as the movie progresses they actually murdered by mistake. Because I won't spoil too much more. I don't want this to be a spoiler. I recommend watching this movie. It has some really haunting Alice Krige scenes. Alice Krige is phenomenal in this one. Yeah, so 3.5 stars for sure. I wouldn't say it was phenomenal, and it wasn't the best horror film I'd ever seen, but it had a really creepy atmosphere. And I love a good creepy ghost story movie and a mystery. Okay, well, most recent Marvel movie I just watched was Avengers: Infinity War, which was from 2018, which is sort of like the return of the, well, I guess Endgame would be the return of the king of Marvel. This is like the Two Towers. This is like building up to the big epic, blockbuster megalithic event. I mean, I get the hype. A lot of it had been spoiled to me beforehand through just being on Twitter. I already knew about the Infinity Stone thing and how it ended. So I can only imagine seeing it for the first time and not knowing that. It would have been pretty epic. So again, decent action piece here. 4 stars. I'm being a little harsh to the Marvel movies. No, it's not 3.5. Put you in 4. And then I saw Thor Ragnarok. I actually saw that a little before. I've been going in chronological order, but that's obviously not what this list is trying to do for me. This one I didn't like as much, so I'll give it 3.5. It was funny, had some funny moments, but didn't do it for me. Okay, this was another Spanish horror film that I saw called Don't Listen, but it was called Voces in Spain. Which means voices. This one was really pretty disturbing, but again, not too graphic, which is the perfect kind of horror that I like. And so overall, I was pretty impressed with it. It's a 3.5 star for me. Speaking of a really good, unsettling, creepy film, I had been wanting to see The Wicker Man for so long, and it finally came to one of those free streaming services where you can just like watch it no extra cost without signing up for anything with ads. I was like, finally, I get to see Christopher Lee being this gloriously like over the top cult leader in this Scottish island with this deeply rooted Celtic pagan folklore that's like folk horror. This is like the folk horror film of folk horror films. Midsummer is obviously in vein of this movie, but this movie was not as gory as Midsummer, which I really appreciated because I can't do the gore, and it's a big reason why I haven't seen Midsummer. So for now, I'm going to put it in 4.5 stars, but this is a very close 5-star film, and I may revisit that at the end. Excellent performance. It's just so unsettling, but also has really beautiful music. I love a movie that can take a lot of sunny scenes that aren't necessarily dark and gloomy and make it look so picturesque and at the same time be so dark and gothic at the same time. The movie is so unsettling even when you have shots and it's like broad daylight and sunny on a green field. The movie is still creepy. May, December. Oh, this movie got film Twitter a buzz. Charles Melton criminally snubbed for supporting actor. Yeah, this was an impressive film. I didn't know anything about the story, and I do think it's a little problematic that they didn't consult the people involved in real life. But Natalie Portman is pretty convincing, and Charles Melton is incredible. And we all love Julianne Moore, and she puts on a very camp performance, very humorous performance in this film. So there's one scene where she's crying, and it's the most absurd thing to cry over. If you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about, in bed. And I had never like laughed at someone crying on camera before, but it really took me by surprise. It was a really funny moment. Okay, another horror movie. This is probably my favorite horror movie I saw in 2023. Skinamarink. Um, this is definitely a WTF one. This movie is extremely low budget and it does not give you a whole lot in terms of cinematography. It's a lot of shots of dark corners, of empty rooms. But if you watch this with the lights out and you know going in what you're expecting, this is a really deeply disturbing, unsettling film. Um, I won't give too much away, but the end, I had never gotten so much chills watching a film before, but it was the most uncomfortable, but like also, adrenaline, like what we all love from horror films, kind of feeling that I could not like take my eyes off the screen, no, despite how like absolutely petrified I was. I think this film did a really good job at taking the kind of thing that makes me uniquely scared and putting it on screen. Because I had a serious fear of the dark as a child. And for any of you who had night terrors and can relate to being afraid of the dark, especially as a child, because this movie is kind of from the perspective of children, this will do numbers on you. You will definitely sleep with the lights on. Oh, for at least 2 nights, I guarantee you. But it's worth it. Rio 2 was cute. I'm gonna give it 3 stars because I love colorful parakeets in rainforests doing fun dancing. But this movie really wasn't anything substantive. Where the Crawdads Sing. I enjoyed this. I had never read the book, and I didn't see the end coming. I was blown away by that twist. I definitely would recommend it. Definitely had my one of my husbands in it, Harris Dickinson. So I was both leading men in that film. I mean, talk about a Sophie's choice. Though she, I mean, one of those men was definitely trifling, but she had some good-looking men in that film, begging for her attention. I watched Ted for the first time this year, and it was funny, but I can't really seriously give it more than 2 stars. I'm sorry. It's a little bit not my kind of humor. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's like a Medea. I actually put Medea higher. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna move Medea down to 2 stars because I can't put Ted above Medea like that. But speaking of bonkers fun comedy, Quiz Lady on Hulu, that was a riot. And as someone from the Philadelphia area, I got a real kick out of that. So did my mom. because the movie is set in Philadelphia. So 4 stars. I one of the best comedies I saw this year. Comedy about Jeopardy, and one of Aquafina's better performances. Leave the World Behind was this sort of like sci-fi thriller on Netflix that the Obamas produced. I really left this movie kind of feeling like I wasted my time. I'm going to be honest, I really didn't enjoy it. There were elements of it I enjoyed, but overall, I kind of just felt like, I don't know, it's not the kind of movie I would make. I'm debating whether I'm putting it in 2 or 3 stars. Honestly, I guess I'll give it 3 stars because it has some great dialogue, some acting that's decent, but I don't know about that one. Catch Me If You Can, a Steven Spielberg movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Finally, again, I'm doing some cinema homework here. I'd never seen this movie. Um, yeah, this was a hoot. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I'm gonna enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I have, didn't know a lot about what was going on because I don't understand finances like this movie goes into it, but I was here for it. I saw The Princess Diaries for the first time, and I'm gonna be honest, didn't really do anything for me, but I'll put it in 3 stars. I think if you don't have nostalgia, it's just kind of at your grown age, it just feels a little bit flat. I watched The Founder, about a biopic about the founder of McDonald's. Decent movie, 3.5. Brave, Pixar's Scottish princess. Although everyone thinks it's Disney, it's actually Pixar. I was really confused by that at the time too. 3.5. Wanted more from it. Wanted more from it. It was enjoyable for what it was. Let's see. Oh, Bros. Oh, goodness. I mean, objectively, I feel like I can't give it 2 stars because there were some aspects of it that I thought were kind of funny. But I have a lot of problems with this movie. I don't want this to be too long of a video, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But I really didn't like Billy Eichner's character, and I didn't necessarily like the representation of gay men being these like really bitter anti-monogamous people up until the age of 40. I just think it's so tired. I don't know. I'm not a big Billy Eichner fan. I'm too introverted for Billy Eichner. He's too loud. So yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars because I really didn't find this movie to be believable or at all sort of like. I mean, the only thing I really respect about it is that everyone who was in the movie was LGBT. And there's another LGBT movie that came out this year that did not have that, and that disappointed me. So, but I still enjoyed it more. Bros was just, Bros was kind of cringe. I think we can all agree, right? How to Train Your Dragon 2 was my least favorite of the How to Train Your Dragons. I did get a little bored, I'm not gonna lie. I think it was just the night I was watching it. I had a hard time not like drifting towards my phone. But 3.5. Women Talking. This was nominated at the 2022 Oscars, or at the 2023 Oscars for 2022. This was a pretty good movie. I mean, it got mixed. Ultimately, it got critical acclaim, but it was also divisive. I think there were some standout performances, but there were also a lot of questionable and unrealistic choices that were made. And my mom, in particular, she couldn't like take a lot of it seriously, which is a shame because it's actually a real story with some embellishments. It wasn't actually in Amish country; it was in Bolivia. So for what it was, I mean, when it worked. But then I think it fell apart with certain aspects when it wasn't just an ensemble dialogue of women really showing what acting is about. I don't know if this movie worked. So I'm gonna still give it. I don't know. 4 stars. I'd like to give it 4 stars just because I respected the screenplay, and I think it won screenplay, if I'm not mistaken. It definitely deserved it. Now, another older film I saw this year was Judgment at Nuremberg. This actually has Judy Garland in it, and I think the reason why we watched it was because I was also watching A Small Light on Disney Plus, which was a Disney series about World War II, and my parents were like, "Let's do another World War II movie," and I was like, "I've never seen this one," and I'm really interested in how World War II ended, because we're always taught about how it began, but we're not so much taught about like the actual trials. So this was an interesting interpretation of them. It wasn't as straightforward of the trials as I would have liked, but I still found it interesting. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. Boy, this computer is struggling here. Come on, we got to get up there. Got to get up there. I saw Wonka. Now, I probably would not have seen Wonka in theaters, but my friend wanted to go, and to be honest with you, I was impressed. Oh, come on now. So, believe it or not, I am giving Wonka 4 stars. I kind of can't believe it, but I am. And Timothy Chalamet, he never ultimately really did it too much for me. But watching this movie, ironically, not Call Me by Your Name, but watching this movie, I started to sort of get it. I was like, okay, I see the appeal. I see the appeal. Oh God, Triangle of Sadness, another Best Picture Oscar film from last year. This one was a roller coaster. I really wanted it to be more just like White Lotus because I loved White Lotus. I actually saw that show for the first time this year. But then in the middle, it started to get a little too much for me with the gratuitous nausea and vomiting. And then I liked it. Picked up a little bit with the Dolly De Leon stuff. She was a standout, obviously. I don't know. I want to give it 4 stars because I still think it had something, but I'm ultimately going to give it 3.5 because it didn't feel like a movie I needed to see again or even tell my parents about. And also the fact that that poor woman died, Charles B. Dean, knowing that, I just was like shook. I couldn't stop thinking about it the whole movie. I think it ruined my perspective a little bit, which is really sad. She's so young, my age, and she died right after it was finished filming. It's just so tragic. Okay, talk about a movie about stupid people doing stupid things. Makes entertaining television. It makes a great movie, but Fall is great if you don't think about it too hard. I had a hoot with it, and I'm going to give it 3.5 stars for the sheer like edge of your seat factor of this movie. It definitely is not a movie that is hard to like. It's not a movie that you're gonna compete for your attention with your phone. You will be locked into it, but you'll also be asking them a million questions about like how fucking stupid they were to not tell a single soul that they were going to climb up this 1,000-foot radio tower and then do all of these other stupid things to put themselves in the position they were in at the end. It was just so Hollywood stupidity. I found some really, kind of low budget horror films this year, and one of my favorites was Hell House LLC. This is a 2015 mockumentary about a haunted house where a massacre happens and like this tragedy and a bunch of people die. And I won't give too much more away, but I was really into the first film. I saw the sequels. You'll see that coming up in here. They weren't as good, but I really liked this one. I'm going to give it 4 stars. If my computer can, get it together here. I think that it's just too much to stream and unfortunately, use this site at the same time, which is really a shame. I watched the Simpsons movie for the first time this year, and the reason I did that is because actually, believe it or not, in 2022, I started watching The Simpsons for the first time, which I know is actually kind of crazy to say. I'd seen clips and I knew a lot of famous parts of the show, but I had never actually sat down and watched the show. And I'm still going through it. I've been slowly going through all 34 seasons. But when I got to around the point that the Simpsons movie came out, I made sure to watch it. But honestly, it left me wanting more. 3.5. Could have been better. I hope they do another one. They have to. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I enjoyed even more than Volume 1. So, it's still only a 4-star movie for me, but it would be above Volume 1. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I think, is a little overhyped. But I do see the appeal of it, and that animation style, you can't deny the appeal of it. Ultimately, I'm afraid I'm only going to give it 3.5 stars because I wasn't absolutely blown away. At the end of the day, it was a Puss in Boots movie. But it had a really good villain, really, kind of emotional story. Barbie, I was going to make a video about it this year, but I didn't end up getting around to it. I have so much to talk about, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet because, especially of the Oscar nomination drama now, Barbie was a well made film that was so wonderfully walking the line between prestige and blockbuster that I think is brilliant. And I think it did a lot for women filmmakers. Um, but at the end of the day, it is kind of a glorified consumer toy commercial. And at the end of the day, the feminism, it's kind of basic. But at the same time, I'm not really going to critique it too much for that. It is still, in my opinion, a 4.5 film. My biggest critique of the film is that the Barbies don't get their own song and dance number. They get to dance to Dua Lipa, but they don't actually get to sing. And I think that the movie really sidelines Barbie to favor Ken. And I think that, we're seeing a little bit of that with the awards conversation, which I just think is really unfortunate. And I feel like Greta Gerwig could have avoided that a little bit more by writing a little bit less Ken in the movie. She wanted men to watch it though, and it did help at the box office to have so much appeal for men, to center half the story, if not more than half the story, around Ken rather than Barbie. Notice we don't have any 1-stars yet. There will be a 1-star coming up. I'm sure there will. Maestro is so divisive. My parents loved it, but my parents love a good traditional biopic. But I know the average film Twitter, hipster is going to tear this film to shreds. I did enjoy it more than Tar, and I have to be honest there. I think that this movie still had some merits. It had some beautiful scenes. Carey Mulligan was just absolutely exquisite. And she deserves the Best Actress nomination, So I am ultimately going to give it 4 stars, because at the end of the day, at least cinematography wise, I mean, come on. And also the music. But Bradley Cooper is a bit of a caricature, and this feels like so much of a plea for an Oscar that it is hard to take seriously. It does need to have a little bit more about Bernstein himself and less about this narrative we've seen a million times about cheating because you're gay. It's been done. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, you know what? As someone who was never really a big Hunger Games person and had only watched the movies, I really enjoyed this. It's another 4-star. Almost 4.5. I was oddly riveted to this, especially the first half where it's the actual competition. The movie started to lose me a little bit at the end when we go back to the districts and it's more of like an espionage kind of situation. But even then, I was still compelled. And the music, Rachel Zegler sings her heart out. She is going to be so... I'm really excited for Snow White just because of her vocals. A Haunting in Venice, Kenneth Branagh's best Poirot film. Although I never saw Death on the Nile, but I heard it wasn't very good. I loved A Haunting in Venice. This one was... I'm going to be actually completely honest with you. I really want to give it 4.5 stars, but I might not, because I do think that that's a little bit bold. But this was way better than some people are saying. Okay, the music was so surreal. Like the music was so atmospheric and perfectly lent itself to the sort of candlelit Venice alleyways. Oh, so wonderful. I think this is Hell House 2 or 3. Can't quite see in the thumbnail here. I'm not sure, but both of the Hell House sequels were 2 stars. They weren't that good, okay? They were both kind of like, so I'm going to actually move them both in there. And then I think we've got one of our first 1-star movies. Although, I don't know. To be honest with you, maybe The Pope's Exorcist was better than The Exorcist Believer. I'm not entirely sure. I ultimately did find The Pope's Exorcist to actually have a slightly more interesting... Oops, we got ahead of ourselves. Well, speaking of the movie I just absolutely put it 1 star, Milk is not a 1-star movie. I saw that for the first time about Harvey Milk. I didn't know his story as a gay man. That was so... Get educated. Milk is a 4.5 movie, okay? Let's just move things up here. Oh, Lord, my computer is struggling, y'all. My computer is struggling. Milk was good. I recommend that. Such a tragic story, though. It makes you really mad. It does make you really mad. But The Pope's Exorcist, yeah, this is another Razzie-nominated film. I'm only still going to put it in the 2-star category, but it really barely makes it into 2 stars. Gosh, I wonder if anything is going to only get 1 star. The Little Mermaid. This remake got way too much hate. It didn't sit right in my soul. Halle Bailey does not deserve any of it because Halle Bailey and Melissa McCarthy, the glue that holds this together. Also, of course, Alan Menken coming back once again to rescore it. Yeah, it's a lot of nostalgia. I actually don't think the visual effects are as bad as people say. I think this is a solid Disney remake. And if all of the Disney live action remakes were as good as Little Mermaid, I don't think I'd be complaining so much about them. Because this was on par with Cinderella for me. Maybe Cinderella was a little better. But I enjoyed this. I mean, there were some things I would have done differently. But I overall felt like this got way too much of a bad rap, and it deserved so much better at the box office. I just got chills hearing every time Halle Bailey sang, and also, not to be honest, Jonah Howard King was impressive. Wish. Oh, you'll hear my thoughts on Wish. There's a bunch of Disney movies in here that I'll talk about in a sec. That I watched for the first time because I'm doing a Disney ranking video that's coming up on this channel. Yeah, Wish was disappointing. I'm gonna have to give it 3 stars. That's harsh, but I hold it to too high a standard. I wanted so much more from this movie. Disney, really should have known better. And I think that it speaks to really poor management in the animation branch, but also in the Disney studio as a whole. I think they've really lost their sense of direction. And a movie just for Easter eggs isn't going to be it. The music is what's saving this movie from being 2 stars. Winnie the Pooh, the 2011 film. So these are some of the Disney films I'd never seen before. Definitely enjoyed this, though. I mean, it's a little forgettable. I love Winnie the Pooh, but it's not the most memorable Disney film. But I got to give it props for being so heartwarming. So it will go in 4 stars. I believe we've got My Neighbor Totoro up next. Boy, we still got quite a few movies to go through. My Neighbor Totoro is one of the Studio Ghibli movies that I watched for the first time this year. And I watched the dub one with Elle and Dakota Fanning. And it really tugged at the heartstrings. I mean, again, all Studio Ghibli movies are like at least 4 stars. Like, can we be honest for a second? All Studio Ghiblis are at least 4 stars. There's a couple others that I will be talking about. Knock at the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, I don't like the ending of this movie. They changed it from the book, and I'm not going to spoil it, but as a gay person, I see why they did it, but I felt like it's a difficult conversation. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It was better than another M. Night Shyamalan movie that I saw this year, but, some compelling performances with Dave Bautista still didn't really save it for me. So I'm giving it 3 stars. Now, a movie that was really hard for me to watch last year was The Whale. There is some really competent acting going on here. I do think Brendan Fraser deserved it, but it's also a really pitiful movie. I think it's pitiful what you're seeing on screen the whole time, and it's really hard to watch, and a bit exploitative. And I don't know how I feel about that. So I'm almost kind of tempted to put it in the 3-star category. I just wasn't getting good feelings after watching this movie. I appreciated some of the acting and dialogue, but it was very claustrophobic and very depressing. As someone who is struggling with mental health, I'm not entirely sure if watching this movie is a good thing for you to watch. You don't want to be in certain moods. Speaking of a biopic that no one seemed to care about last year, Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. I thought this was actually kind of nice. Now, I know that I'm not a Whitney Houston expert, and I have not seen any other Whitney Houston biopics, so it's probably a bit crazy for me to say I enjoyed this so much because I know most people felt like there had been better versions of her story, and there probably were. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I felt Whitney in that performance. So I'm putting it in 3.5. Not as bad as people said it was. Again, we're out of order here. I watched both Maleficent movies. Maleficent Mistress of Evil is okay. I'll give it 3 stars. Didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. The Boy and the Heron. I was so tempted to make a video about this movie. Very, very hard to follow in the second half. But I can't wait to rewatch it because now that I know the metaphors, I've done my deep dives into what this movie means for Hayao Miyazaki. I'm so glad I watched a ton of Ghibli movies before I watched this one too. Um, this is a masterpiece. This is a masterpiece. And I know it's controversial, but I'm putting it in 5 stars. Because at the end of the day, when I come to cinema, I want movies like this. Because the music was absolutely gut-wrenchingly beautiful. The animation was just some of the most beautiful animation I'd ever seen. And the overall aura and like presence of this movie's just stuck with me ever since I've seen it. The first half is like really kind of by the numbers, like mystery and kind of Chronicles of Narnia-esque. And then I was so excited to see how it expanded. And there was definitely a lot of Pan's Labyrinth influence. There was a lot of influence from a lot of different places, but I won't say too much more. But their imagery, as an artist, I am inspired by so much of the imagery I saw in this movie, and it's made me want to create art that just, it's so inspiring as a visual artist. Hand-drawn animation must live on, and thank goodness Japan is such a proponent of it. Leo on Netflix was cute, not as bad as you'd think, but it's still a 3-star movie. If that, barely a 3-star movie. In fact, I might even give it 2 stars because it wasn't really for me. It was cute, but it really didn't do it for me. Doctor Strange, I do like kind of mystical, esoteric Buddhist stuff in superhero movies. But this movie, I can see why it's not everyone's favorite. I'm going to give it 3 stars. Elemental. Don't sleep on Elemental. Elemental was a damn good Pixar movie. Not Pixar's best, but certainly a very emotional, beautiful film. And really poorly advertised. So for me, Elemental is I would possibly, 4 stars. Let's not get carried away. It's a 4-star film. Madagascar 3. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it in 1 star because I had a fun time with it, but it's definitely a 2-star movie, okay? Let's see. The Sea Beast. I enjoyed that. Oh, come on. Let's catch up here. Netflix animation has been impressing me. I honestly kind of, at least for the animation alone, kind of want to give it 4 stars. Though I don't know. Yeah, 4 stars. It deserved the animation nomination last year at the Oscars. All right. I watched the 1999 Disney Channel movie Smart House. I think my friend showed it to me because it was like a movie he really liked as a kid. I actually fell asleep the first time I watched it, so I rewatched the parts I fell asleep for. Allison Janney being an AI house homekeeper, that's a fantasy for some people, I'm sure. I'm sorry, it's a 2-star movie because it is very camp, but it was fun. It's very 90s, very Disney Channel. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, the Best Picture winner of 2023. Gotta be honest, I think this movie is overrated, and I was a little shocked to see it sweep every award, but I hadn't seen it until after the Academy Awards. And I was expecting to not like it, but I did, it got me. I think that Jamie Lee Curtis was not deserving of that supporting actress nomination win, and that is just so crazy to me. But I'm sorry, I can't feel like this movie is more than 4 stars. I know that people would put it higher, but it was a little too high on its own supply. Again, I like saying that. I sometimes feel like movies lose the plot in a way that, for me, makes it kind of hard to enjoy. And I like Out There, but I like to also know what the heck is going on. And I just was way too confused at certain points of the logic of this movie. Till is another biopic that I think that, the Oscars should have, Danielle Deadwyler really should have gotten a nomination here. Very powerful about the Emmett Till murder. Just crazy to think that the woman who actually got Emmett Till murdered by, setting those men up on him. She actually just died this year, Carolyn Bryant Dunham. Yeah, it's if you take away some aspects of it, it's not the most groundbreaking biopic, but her performance is devastating. Let's see. We're coming to the final stretch here. We still got a couple more to go. Yeah, No Hard Feelings. I actually saw this movie 3 times this year, but I had a hoot with this one. It's just a silly, old-fashioned, raunchy rom-com that they don't make as much anymore. And I love seeing Jennifer Lawrence kind of getting her mojo back. So I had a good time with this one. I'm putting a lot in 4 stars. But boy, is this site not liking me. Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is the other gay film that, unlike Bros, did not have a lot of actually openly gay people involved or LGBT people involved in the cast. And that really disappointed me. I know I'm going to start up a firestorm in the comments about the 2 lead male actors and their sexuality. First of all, I kind of always come at it like this way. It's like straight until proven otherwise. But because they give off straight vibes, I'm sorry. But also, gay men can give off straight vibes. Luke McFarlane gave off straight vibes. So, you never know. But to be honest with you, I'm really disappointed in them if they actually are bisexual or gay and are choosing not to come out when they're in their late 20s and early 30s and are in a movie like this. I just think it is really cowardly. I'm sorry, I just said that. It's 2024. You're in the acting industry. You can come out. I think that they're actually, I don't think that they are gay. So this is a 3-star movie. I mean, it is Hallmark kind of vanilla gay romance, but hey, it has a happy ending. And 2 very attractive men going at it a few times, which, it's always nice to see. But it's a preposterous love story. Very schlocky. Come on, you gonna move? We don't got all day here. I saw the Grand Budapest Hotel, technically not for the first time this year. Me and my parents actually started watching it in 2014, and forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. We turned it off. I'm really sad to say. I don't know why, because watching it this year, I don't understand why we did. I think we just didn't get it at the time. We weren't ready. It's really sad because, Wes Anderson, I got mixed feelings about him. I think he is a little too one note for me in his style and a little too pretentious. Sometimes mainstream things are mainstream for a reason. But at the same time, now I'm starting to really appreciate his artistry and his craft and his production, his eye for production value. And the Grand Budapest Hotel has got to be his best film. I think we all can agree. So actually, I really do think it is borderline 4.5 territory. I don't think I'm going to put it there ultimately, but it is a very high 4, for sure. We have Oppenheimer, the movie that is probably going to win it all at the Academy Awards. I mean, look, I am not a hard science guy. This doesn't necessarily on paper look like a movie that I would put in my favorite of the year category. But I just recently watched this for a second time, and upon second viewing, all of the brilliance of this movie kind of comes more into full force. I mean, I do think that the perspective is very from Oppenheimer, and the women in his life are not well written. And Christopher Nolan has a woman problem. We know this. So I don't really understand Emily Blunt's supporting actress nomination. I don't really think she's that impressive in the movie. I'm sorry. I also don't think Robert Downey Jr. is altogether that impressive, though I do think he's better than De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon. But I don't know. Killers of the Flower Moon, by the way, isn't going to be on here because I actually just watched that movie right before filming this video, but that'll be in the 2024 one. But yes, Oppenheimer is probably going to win Best Picture, and it certainly is, a stylistic, expression of way how to tell a biopic, but like really get under your skin. And I know that the big critique thrown at this film is that it doesn't consider the Japanese aspect. I actually think that this film excels because of it. There's just one scene where you really get inside Oppenheimer's mind, and he sees the horrors of what he's created, and you really feel the terror creeping up inside of him. And I think the film does a really wonderful job of showing how divorced he was from his own creation and the havoc that it caused. Um, he was a scientist. He was excited about what could be created in a lab. And, he did also want to end the war and end suffering, but, he couldn't foresee what was to come from his creation until it was too late. And the film does a phenomenal job at encapsulating all of that anxiety that was going through his head. And Cillian Murphy deserves Best Actor. I'm sorry. He keeps the film 100% grounded in that anxiety and that trepidation. The Secret Garden 2020 is a remake of the 1993, which was also a novel. And I love the 1993 version. So I was hesitant to watch this. This movie is way too reliant on CGI for the garden, which absolutely takes me out of the magic of it because I think the Secret Garden looks so much more wondrous when it looks real. But this is like way too Chronicles of Narnia CGI. And also, I think the story feels a little too watered down. But I mean, it does have some pretty scenery. It's got some pretty cinematography and some pretty music. So at the end of the day, I will give it 3 stars, but it is nothing on the original Secret Garden. I do like the song Aurora wrote for the soundtrack, though. One of my possibly favorite films that I saw in all of 2023 is 1997 Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. I went on a Studio Ghibli splurge this year, and Princess Mononoke, after Spirited Away, which I had seen as a child, that was the only Studio Ghibli movie I had ever seen before 2023. This was the second one I ever watched at the beginning of the year, and it just, I can't, I had to own it on Blu-ray. I think this movie is just absolutely spellbinding. Again, similar to The Boy and the Heron, a lot of imagery and music and overall concept for this was really inspiring to some of my ideas for creative projects and artwork. So I'm such a Studio Ghibli head now, and it's making me really want to watch a lot of other anime movies. So 5 stars for sure, and I don't think people would, disagree on that. Let's see. The Nun 2. I don't know. Am I the only person who thinks this is worse than the first Nun movie? I think I'm crazy. This isn't getting glowing reviews or anything, but people hated the first Nun movie, the same way everyone hates The Exorcist Believer. But I gotta be honest, I don't know. I was disappointed in The Nun 2. The pacing was really glacial. A lot of the movie was really boring. I'm not saying I want a lot of jump scares, but there certainly were a lot of cheap jump scares in this one. There were only a handful of scenes where I really felt like it was living up to the haunting elements of what the Conjuring universe is great for. And I actually rewatched The Nun recently because I'd only seen it once in 2018, and I enjoyed that way more. But I think maybe it's because I'm more a sucker for the Gothic castle mystery, and this movie takes place predominantly in a boarding school. And so I don't know. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. This movie really let me down. I was disappointed, though it's a high 2 stars. Rosemary's Baby. I had never seen this movie before. Isn't it crazy? From the 60s. Quintessential cult classic. The movie that, everyone points to as being a horror film, a genre film that has such phenomenal acting. This movie will stick with you and does a great job with the less is more approach with the set design and with the music and the ambiance. It's a 5 star. 5 stars, baby. Oh, for sure. I don't know a single person who wouldn't like this movie, especially if you like horror. I watched a movie called The Lost King, which was about Richard III, and about how he was discovered. His remains were discovered in a parking lot in the UK in 2009, I'd like to say, 2013. Really interesting story. Didn't necessarily love the whole, lead actress talking to a fictitious Richard III. It was comical for a little bit, but then it got old. So it's a good 3.5. It's a good mom movie, it's a good movie for the parents. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. My parents, my dad's British and my mom loves British cinema, so it was a must watch for them. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. This is actually the only movie on this list that I'm not 100% sure I didn't actually watch in December of 2022, but I'm fairly certain it was January of 2023. This one I didn't log on Letterboxd as a diary entry, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was 2023. Regardless, I wanted to share my thoughts. This is a phenomenal movie. Um, for the stop motion, for the production design, for the camera work, for the emotion, it's a 5-star movie, okay? Absolutely loved it. Highly recommend if you haven't seen. It'll just give you such a good warm feeling inside. Oh, it like was for someone who struggles with depression, this movie really brightened my mood, really brightened my mind. Book Club, the next chapter, was an absolute joke. I gotta be honest, I'm almost oh, hold on a second. Why is Leo in 1 star? And The Croods, okay, well, I didn't mean to put The Croods in 1 star. The Croods is a 2-star movie, okay? The Croods is a 2-star movie. But I saw it this year, and it was, yeah, okay, maybe high 2-star. But Book Club Next Chapter is definitely a 2-star. I'm not sure if I'm going to put anything in 1 star. I'll have to reevaluate once I go through all of them. Actually, I do know one I will put in 1 star in a minute. But if you like Jane Fonda and Diane Steenburgen and Candice Bergen, you'll enjoy it. I loved the first Book Club. This one was not as good. It was so by the numbers and so predictable. I was really tuning out. I was finding a hard time to find it as enjoyable as I thought it would. She Said, a movie from last year about the Me Too movement, was pretty by the numbers for what you'd expect from a sort of Hollywood um, deep dive into a news scandal with prestigious actors, doing their thing, but it still falls a little flat. But it's a 3.5 for sure. I mean, the story itself, the real story kind of overshadows it because it's just such a sad, narrative that women are dealing with here. I mean, it really just, it's a downer. Megan, yeah, Megan, I didn't really, the dancing was fun. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be, but not something to phone home about. Out of all of the Studio Ghibli movies I saw this year, Kiki's Delivery Service was one of my least favorites. I'm sorry to say. I think if I had watched it as a kid, I would have had more nostalgia for it. So as much as I said all Studio Ghibli movies, no, it's still 4 stars, but it's a low 4 stars for me. But Howl's Moving Castle was, I'm still kind of not sure if I'm going to put it in 4.5, but Howl's Moving Castle I definitely enjoyed. A very out there movie as well. I think Howl's Moving Castle and The Boy and the Heron have a lot in common. Well, Spirited Away as well. Those movies all have a similar thing going on, but Howl's Moving Castle is a very similar sort of narrative. Okay, maybe The Haunted Mansion gets 1 star. Maybe, because this movie is just so, it's so cheap. I mean, it has rich production design. It doesn't look cheap. It's pretty high budget. But Danny DeVito can't save this. And Tiffany Haddish had a couple funny lines, but they were also not really like necessary or really feeling like it was any merit to the movie itself. Yeah, this was a bad movie. So I think it's a 1 star for that reason. Speaking of what's not a 1 star, Contact. I finally saw the 1997 extraterrestrial sci-fi movie, which is extremely esoteric and spiritual. And it left me thinking a lot. And I really can't wait to watch it again. I need to watch it with my family because I think my brother's never seen it. He sounded interested, and I'm just like, this movie is This movie is something. I know why Katya praises it all the time on yeah. I'm tempted to give it a 5 stars. I mean, yeah, I think so. I think this movie kind of really, ticked the boxes I wanted for it. Um, it's a good alien contact movie. There are a lot of bad ones. All right, we are almost there, folks. We are getting there. I watched a movie called The Mimic, which is a Korean horror film from several years ago. The ending was absolutely devastating. And it had some stuff that was really original that I'd never seen in a horror before that I think really like stuck with me. So I think it's a 3.5er. I would recommend it. I think I saw it on YouTube for free with ads. So if it's still available, I would recommend it if you like Korean supernatural horror or Asian supernatural horror. I watched Free Guy for the first time this year. You know what? For all I give it points for originality and creativity, but I still kind of think it's more of a 2-star movie. But I'll put it in low 3 stars because it had moments. It had moments. San Andreas, I am tempted to put in 1 star. That was not a good movie. As a matter of fact, I may actually put it in 1 star because I knew going into it I wasn't expecting much, but disaster movies can be so much more. And this one wasn't it. Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, another Korean haunted house film, paranormal found footage film that is, I believe, still on YouTube for free, or at least some streaming site for free. And let me tell you, this movie is unsettling. Oh my God, this is one of the best found footage films I have ever seen. There is one scene in particular that I am never going to get out of my nightmares. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Very anxiety inducing, very keeping you on the edge of your seat. Not like every other found footage film you've ever seen. So definitely worthwhile. And it's a 4-star for sure. Possibly even a 5-star, but definitely very strong. Peter Pan and Wendy. Gosh, these live action remakes. Everyone's forgotten about this one, haven't they? It was just dropped on Disney Plus and then no one cared. We've gotten too many. Peter Pan's been done to death. The lead actor who played Peter Pan, really not a good actor. I felt like Neverland didn't feel like fantastical like I wanted it to. I loved the lush rainforests of the 2003 version and also the animated version. But this one was all filmed in like Scotland and in like Ireland. It felt very British Isles, which is beautiful, but not quite Neverland. The color palette was just so dull. So, I was trying to do something, but it's a 2-star. My least favorite Studio Ghibli movie I saw this year was When Marnie Was There. But even then, I still think it's a 3.5. But, you can tell this wasn't a Hayao Miyazaki movie. It was the only Studio Ghibli movie I watched this year that was not directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Actually, Kiki's Delivery Service might not have been either, now that I think about it. I'm not 100% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Okay, so that other M. Night Shyamalan movie I watched that I mentioned, Old, interesting premise, kept my attention, but a gross and stupid movie. All right, let's be real. The twist was, it sort of was something I didn't see coming. I'm kind of stupid though. Like people talk about A Haunting in Venice having an easy twist. I didn't see it coming, but I'm kind of stupid when it comes to these mysteries. Once Upon a Studio, this was what Disney should have had for Wish. This was the real centennial celebration for Disney. Just on nostalgia alone, I mean, it's just so phenomenal. So it's getting 4.5 stars. The only reason it's not getting 5 is because it's too short. But having all the original voice actors come back for all these classic Disney films, I'm so excited. I'll talk about it more in my Disney ranking video. Alice Through the Looking Glass, really bad movie. I think we all kind of knew that. So I think Alice Through the Looking Glass gets 1 star. I just really loved Helena Bonham Carter shaking the little shrunken characters in that ant trap and going, ha ha, earthquake. That's the only memorable thing. That's literally the only thing I can remember from this movie. Also, the Borat guy being, the master of time. It was so, everything I heard about this movie came to be how it was. How bad it was true. As far as my Disney, homework I did this year, I watched Bolt because I'd never seen it before, and Miley Cyrus is a voice actor on this one. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why some people like it, but again, I watched it for the first time as a 30-year-old, so I don't know if I was really supposed to really have that much to get. I'm giving it a 3 star. It's very generous, very generous. Once the movie gets going and they start the adventure part of it, it starts to pick up a little bit. But the beginning part, I was just like, this might be the worst Disney movie I've ever seen. Um, Speaking of bad Pixar movies, Cars 3 I had never seen. I still haven't seen Cars 2. But you know what? Cars 3 wasn't as bad as I thought. So it's a high 2 stars. Lightyear, yeah, Lightyear is 3 stars. It wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it as much as some people. Could have been better. Strange World was so disappointing. Strange World is a 3 star, although a little higher than Lightyear. Um, Strange World is a perfect example again of Disney trying too hard to check boxes for diversity without actually making that diversity feel authentic or necessary for the plot of the story. As a gay person, I'm saying that, and I know that the conservatives are all angry about wokeism, but like these movies are failing in the relatability dynamic. And Strange World was just trying to do way too much. And I think if it had just been a straightforward adventure and focused a lot more on the environmentalism theme, it could have been a little stronger. Because I did like the overall concept, and I did like some of the animation. Guardians of the Galaxy, the holiday special. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this was really bad to me. I don't know why. I guess people liked it ironically because everyone likes campy kind of Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. I had watched this after watching 1 and 2. I have still not seen Volume 3, but that's because I am only at Infinity War. I'm watching Endgame soon. Then I'll get into the post-2019 Marvel stuff. And I'll do Volume 3. Fun and Fancy Free is a terrible Disney movie, okay? So I watched some Disney war films from the 40s because I had never seen them before. And I'm just gonna, automatically couple Melody Time and Saludos Amigos are all 2-star, not very good iterations of that. Although I would argue maybe Melody Time I like a little bit more than Saludos Amigos. And then The Three Caballeros is the best one that I saw this year. The Three Caballeros just fully fleshes out what Saludos Amigos was doing. And it had some beautiful animation and some beautiful sequences, some great dancing. I wanted to get up and dance as well. Now, it's a little problematic. There's a lot of, the exoticism of Latin America kind of from the white perspective, but it's the 1940s. And then the other Disney movie I watched that I'd never seen that's from the original canon of Disney is Home on the Range. And I'm gonna be honest, this movie wasn't as bad as I thought. I was expecting absolute crap. But 3 stars is a little too generous for it. So I'm afraid I still think I'm gonna put it in the 2-star category. Wrapping up here, we've got the original Maleficent. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars, though it's going to take a minute for it to get up there. I still want more from these movies. Sleeping Beauty is one of my favorite Disney films, and I don't feel like these Maleficent movies are quite living up to its legacy. Not in the way that like Cinderella's remake lived up to Cinderella. I really didn't enjoy Casper. Someone who was a fan of it tried to get me into it. I really want to give it 1 star, but I'm going to give it 2 stars because it tries to be what it is. It's not trying to be more than it is. It's for kids. Why would I as an adult really enjoy it? Unless I had nostalgia. Kronk's New Groove, not a good sequel. 2 stars, barely funny. Rustin. Fun fact, Bayard Rustin actually went to my high school in the early 1930s. He was a civil rights leader and a gay one who marched alongside Martin Luther King. He's not as well known, so they're finally starting to, talk more about him. A similar movie to Till in that it was really just the lead performance's performance that made the movie. The rest of it wasn't that strong. Coleman Domingo did, unlike Daniel Deadwyler last year, get a nomination for Best Actor, and I'm very happy about that because he sells this movie. But yeah, there's actually a high school in my school district called Ruston High School. He didn't attend that one because it's a newer high school. He attended my high school back in the day when there was only one high school in my district. But so a fun little fact about Ruston, a historical figure from my hometown. And lastly, we've got two movies that are both very sort of meme movies. We've got the Super Mario Brothers movie, which, you know what, as a Nintendo head who grew up with Super Mario, I had way too much fun at this. But I rewatched it a second time and I was bored out of my mind. So as much as originally I probably would have given it 4 stars, I think I'm only going to give it 3.5 because it's got cute animation. And I think actually the simplistic storyline is very par of the course for Mario because Mario doesn't really have much of a story. But it doesn't have a lot of rewatchability for me. So I don't know, kind of was a bit of a drag to watch a second time. And then 80 for Brady. Oh God, talk about the better Jane Fonda comedy. And this one actually had Lily Tomlin. I'm such a Grace and Frankie fan. This movie, I mean, I may be putting it higher than I should, but I almost am tempted to give this one 4 stars. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's definitely high 3.5 stars. Okay, this was an enjoyable comedy, way more enjoyable than Book Club: The Next Chapter. Wow. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of honestly, I don't know if I'm going to really do too much rearranging. If we look at the bottom here, I mean, the absolute worst I would probably say is Alice Through the Looking Glass here. The worst out of this category, I would probably say would be like Kronk's New Groove, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Old, Cars 3, The Exorcist Believer. The worst out of the 3-star category, you know, Lightyear, Bolt, Free Guy, The Giggle, Lion King 1.5, Rio 2. The worst out of the 3.5s. I mean, I'm pretty good with where all these are placed. So I'm not like the best movies out of these categories are, it's all kind of where I think it should be. But I will do a little bit of ranking here. I think that Barbie goes right behind Missing, and The Wicker Man goes before How to Train Your Dragon. Let's get Barbie up here. Actually, I'm going to put Barbie in front of Missing. And then I maybe put this there. And then as far as for the 5 stars, I don't know. I on Letterboxd, I currently have Oppenheimer as the best movie I saw in 2020 for 2023. But if we're counting best movies I ever saw, I think Princess Mononoke is at number 1, followed by The Last Emperor or come on now, not wanting to, you know, followed by Rosemary's Baby, Skinamarink, Marcel the Shell. I mean, I'm pretty okay with these being ordered how they are. Let's get Marcel up here, okay? Boy and the Heron, Skinamarink, Last Emperor, Oppenheimer. Yeah, I would put Oppenheimer above The Boy and the Heron. But yeah, so these are all the movies that I saw in 2023. What were your favorite movies of the year of 2023? And also, if you happen to keep a log of all the movies that you saw in 2023, which ones would be at the top? And what were your least favorite movies too, if you wanted to share? Thank you all so much for watching and sticking along with this lengthy video. And I look forward to talking more about movies. I will make a video about the Oscars right after the Oscars air. I'll do a recap of the Oscars. But I will still talk about music. There'll be music stuff. I'm going to talk about the Grammys. That's coming up in a week or two. And other stuff I have planned. But like I said, I've got a Disney video plan where I'm going to rank all 62 Disney animated theatrical release films. So that'll be really fun. It should be up by the end of February. But I can't, not necessarily sure when that'll go up. But please give this a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new here, and I will, for more content like this, and I will see you all in my next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed night or day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.